Hitler is able to find and seize their weapons. 3 million German political opponents are imprisoned in concentration camps between 1933 and 1945. More than 5 million Jews slaughtered. 1 million children. Gypsies, Slavs, pacifists, critics, the disabled. More than 11 million total die in concentration camps. Nearly 21 million civilians throughout Europe perish at Hitler's hands. The Kingdom of Cambodia has existed for centuries, but after 90 years under French domination, the country is in chaos. In 1975, following 5 years of civil war, the Communist Khmer Rouge seized power. Led by dictator Pol Pot, they set about purifying the country. Communist regimes elsewhere in the world had aimed to establish paradise on earth someday. The Khmer Rouge want it now. Their idea of paradise means eliminating all religious leaders, monks, nuns, priests and preachers, political enemies, city dwellers, Vietnamese and members of other undesirable ethnic groups, all traces of Western cultural capitalism, all students and intellectuals, professionals, anyone who can speak English or French or who has more than a 7th grade education. Merely wearing eyeglasses marks people for death squads. The Khmer Rouge don't need any new laws. Their will is the law. But ever since a series of earlier uprisings, Cambodia has had tight restrictions on firearms ownership, such as laws restricting the number of weapons, and permits so strict that a firearm owner can't even loan a gun to a family member. Combined with Cambodia's poverty and non-violent Buddhist traditions, these laws ensure that very few Cambodians own firearms or are prepared for any form of self-defense. Anyone who fought against the Khmer Rouge and any civilians who own firearms are forced to disarm the moment Pol Pot takes power. The defenseless people are unaware and unready for what is to come. The Khmer Rouge force mass evacuations of the cities. Believing the evacuations will be temporary, Cambodians neither resist nor take enough food to survive. The move is not temporary. The entire population of the country, those who are not slaughtered outright, is herded onto collective farms to labor without homes, personal possessions, or families. All of Cambodia is turned into a concentration camp, brutally administered. No one can receive mail or phone calls, books, or skilled medical care. All human relationships are shattered. The simple act of saying a kind word to a child is punishable by death. The methodical evacuation and slaughter fit well with Pol Pot's goal: to reduce Cambodia's population from 7 million to about 1 million primitive, agricultural workers. Year by year, for the next 4 years, the Khmer Rouge murder Cambodians at a rate 8 times higher than that of Nazi Germany. More than a quarter of the country's population dies before Vietnamese troops invade with machine guns, helicopter gunships, and tanks. It takes them only a month to put a stop to the madness. In Uganda, 300,000 undefended people die, yet few outsiders care. The world turns its eyes away. It is the hidden genocide. When Idi Amin comes to power in 1971, the world's political leaders embrace him. Amin overthrows dictator Milton Obote, who had banned political parties, killed opponents, and enacted a socialist agenda. Obote's government had also passed laws forbidding private citizens to possess firearms. Only government officials and other friends could get permission. Obote had been unpopular, and who could be worse? Surely not big, strapping Idi Amin, a clown who sometimes jumps into swimming pools in his full-dress general's uniform. But Amin is not merely worse. He is unspeakable. He immediately orders the slaughter of all soldiers whose loyalty he doubts. 16,000 men disappear in the next few months. Next, Amin claims that God has instructed him to throw every Asian out of the country. Then all the English people must go. Amin confiscates their businesses and land to give to his cronies. Uganda plunges into chaos. To prevent resistance, Amin makes it illegal for 3 or more people to be together if one of them is armed. Firearms are seized at Amin's whim. Amin's personal agents run amok. They torture and cruelly mutilate their targets, mostly Christians, rival tribespeople, and anyone Amin or his soldiers just happen to dislike. The dead include a university vice-chancellor, an Anglican bishop, a Supreme Court justice who dares rule against Amin's whims, and the Minister of the Interior, who is dismembered alive. Death squads sometimes make victims lie down in gutters to make their blood easier to wash away. Most Ugandans have no arms and no power to resist the killer regime. The orgy of slaughter continues for 8 years. In 1979, Amin is finally overthrown. Saudi Arabia welcomes him as a guest, and there he lives for decades in peace. The smiling monster never faces prosecution for the death of 300,000 innocents. % of Rwanda's population belongs to the Hutu tribe. About 9% are Tutsi. The tribes often intermarry, but rivalries have simmered, especially since Belgian colonial rulers in the early 20th century gave political authority to the Tutsi minority. By 1994, a Hutu regime has been in power for many years. Some Tutsis have threatened rebellion, and the government has responded by calling all Tutsis rebels. The government has fueled a campaign of hate, preaching violence against Tutsis. State-controlled radio stations call for the extermination of the Tutsi. And in April, it begins. The grave is only half full, one radio station declares. Who will help us to fill it? Thousands of murderers help in an unspeakable frenzy that lasts 100 days. Government troops participate. So do armed Hutu gangs that have been issued weapons for the purpose. Weapons are sometimes crude. Machetes, axes, nail-studded clubs, and blunt instruments. Some attackers use firearms. But the helpless Tutsi and those Hutu who oppose the government often have nothing more than rocks. Laws and poverty have kept the victims from getting weapons to defend themselves. The Minister of Defense controls permits for weapons and keeps a registry of those few people allowed to possess firearms. The Minister of Defense is also the chief organizer of the nationwide killing campaign. If victims can find or make weapons equal to those of their attackers, then they stand a chance of surviving. In Kigali province, civilians huddle in a church compound. Using rocks, bows and arrows, and a single gun seized from a dead soldier, they hold off attackers for a week. Eventually, they are overwhelmed by troops wielding grenades. 5,500 die. In one town, the mayor urges villagers to disarm, saying the police will protect them. When they refuse, he orders police to shoot them. The war of rocks against bullets in that town lasts 3 days. In the end, 20,000 townspeople are massacred. Across Rwanda, tens of thousands hide in schools and churches. They are besieged and beaten or shot to death. To catch people trying to escape the killing, roadblocks are set up throughout the country. Soldiers check national ID cards. Unarmed, defenseless people whose cards identify them as Tutsi are slaughtered. Man, woman, and child. Merely to be who you are is punishable by death. But of course these horrors struck other people, far away. People who are different from us. Countries that are different from ours. Surely it can't happen here.